everyone, welcome back to another episode of Everyday Bubbly with Taylor and Allegra. As you can see, today is going to be a solo episode with just me. Taylor has been traveling for vacation. I know she just got back from Hawaii for a wedding. So we will be back with some joint episodes starting next week. But for today, we are going to dive into another solo episode. As always, we start off with our cheers of the week. So I have got a little bit of a different drink today. This is a protein smoothie. I've definitely been trying to be on more of a health and a wellness kick. My sister really helped me kind of look at my lifestyle and look at some health and wellness goals of mine. And she's really been a catalyst for helping me just kind of analyze what I've been doing in my day-to-day life and how I can increase healthier habits. And one of those is definitely by increasing my protein intake and just overall like looking at food and how I've been tracking it, starting to track it because I haven't been doing that. With that being said, she helped me with some smoothie recipes to get some more protein. So this is a protein smoothie. Inside of this smoothie, it's pretty simple. I just use this little like magic bullet blender and it does the trick. If you have a nicer blender, you might be able to get more quantities and make multiple at a time, but I just like doing a little single serving in this little bullet blender. Again, protein smoothie. It's got 1 cup of a lactose-free and fat-free milk from Fairview. It also has 50 grams of a protein shake. This one particular has a vanilla shake by Owen. And then I've got 2 scoops of a vegan and B12 protein powder in here. It's unflavored, so it's great that it can go in any kind of drink that you're having. And then I also have usually I do, I don't know, somewhere between 100 to 150 grams of fruit. It can be frozen or it can be fresh. This one has pineapple in it, and then I added a little bit of orange juice just for some taste. So you probably see me sipping on this, but not our usual drink that we have on Everyday Bubbly for cheers. But hey, it's also, 11 o'clock in the morning. It's Memorial Day weekend is when I'm recording this, so we might have some drinks later. So now that I have what I am cheersing with, I'm going to share my cheers that I am doing this week. My sister came and visited over the weekend for Memorial Day, and it was just really nice. We got to spend time, just the two of us. Adam was house sitting for a friend, so he wasn't here. We just got some good girl time, and we went to a new Greek restaurant in North Austin called Yama's. That was super delicious. I can't wait for Taylor and I to go back, maybe give a little review, but it was really good. And then Taylor and I recently became members of a new wine club with a winery that is here in Central Texas. It's called CL Butod. And yeah, Taylor and I went the other week and we really enjoyed it and became members. And then when my sister was here, we thought it would be fun to do some wine tasting. The membership comes with some complimentary tastings throughout every month. So it was nice. I got to take my sister with me. We got to drink some wine, bought some wine, and then we ended the night watching Bridgerton, the new season, and it was really fun. So that is my cheers of the week. Let's dive into the topic today. This one I actually got the inspiration to do when I was recording my last solo episode. If you guys remember, I was in Napa Valley for work when I was recording that one. And after I finished recording, I thought it would be really cool to share kind of my Napa do's and don'ts and tips for visiting. As many of you guys might know, I am an event producer and I work with a company that is local and has their headquarters here in Austin. But we own 2 events that are produced out in Napa Valley. One is called Live in the Vineyard. The other is called Live in the Vineyard Goes Country. And so with that, I've had the opportunity to go out there several times to produce these events. I was counting, I've been out there 6 times since 2019. And each time's different. Each time we get to work with different winery partners. It's a music industry event first and foremost, but there is a hospitality component. It's not an event that you can buy a ticket to, unfortunately. Yes, while I'm out there twice a year generally producing these events, it's not really an event that I can invite people to attend. If you are interested in going though, check out the website liveinthevineyard.com and check it out. We do sell hospitality packages. They are a minimum of 10 tickets for $3,500 a ticket. So definitely not on the cheap side, but let me know if you or your company might be interested in something. It's a great opportunity for, sales incentive retreats or leadership retreats, hospitality, any of those kinds of play, but it's food, music, wine, it's 3 days. It's awesome. So I feel very lucky that I get to work on these events. And with that, I have compiled sort of my recommendations for Napa, favorite wineries, tips and tricks. So let's just dive right in. First and foremost, getting to Napa can seem a little challenging, but it really isn't if you do the prep work. There are 3 different airports that you can fly into for Napa. The first, well, actually there's 4. But the first, which is the one that I usually fly in and out of, is Sacramento. The second would be Oakland. The third would be San Francisco. And the fourth, which I've not really had a lot of people I know fly into, but the fourth would be San Jose. And out of those 4 airports, they're all kind of relatively the same distance, anywhere from like 50 to 65 miles away from Napa. Will take you about an hour to 2 hours to drive out there, depending on traffic. And generally, when picking an airport, take a look at where you're traveling from, your origination airport, and just see which one has the best flight path for you. I like Sacramento because I can get nonstop on Southwest from Austin to Sacramento. Oakland, I don't believe has a nonstop. San Francisco might, but it's like one a day. You just kind of have to check on the schedule and what makes the most sense for your travel plans. But that's how I normally scope it out. I love Southwest. They have directs there, but there's other airlines as well that fly to any of those airports. So once you get to the airport, though, you kind of have to figure out how you're getting the hour to 2 hours to Napa. And there's a couple of different ways that you can get out there. The first and easiest way is definitely renting a rental car. There are great rental car partners that I've worked with. National is probably my favorite. Also have used Enterprise and Hertz. But just take a look at the different rates. And I would do this a couple months in advance because the closer to your travel dates you get, the more expensive it's going to be. I actually, on this last time, I had a rental car that I got through work, but then my boyfriend came to visit me in Napa so we could actually do fun touristy things after the work stuff was done. So I had to swap my rental car out to get a new rental car. So it wasn't the one that was on the company card. It was one that I was renting. And of course, I did that sort of at the last minute. So, which I would not recommend because the rates were kind of astronomical. They were going for anywhere from $800 to $1,000 for the 5 days that we needed the car. And granted, we were renting a car and then taking it down to San Diego. So it would have been cheaper if it was like a rental and a return at the same airport, but we had different plans. So when I was looking for rates, I of course looked at all of those and plus a couple others. And I actually then ended up finding the best deal through the Chase travel portal. I have the Chase Sapphire Reserve credit card. It comes really in handy for travel. So I looked at the Chase travel portal. When I put in rental cars, I was able to find one with National, which again is my favorite rental car company to use. And it was such a good deal. I think it was like 15,000 points to redeem plus $130 cash. And that by far was the best option for us. So ended up going that route. It was fine because I rented my car for work at the Sacramento airport, drove to Napa for work, and then had to drive back to Sacramento. But it worked out because that was when Adam was flying into Sacramento. So I was able to switch out the rental car and then I was able to pick him up. And it worked out really well timing wise. But if you do book through a travel portal like Chase or Amex, the one thing I would recommend is that you make sure that your confirmation is in fact confirmed. I've heard horror stories about people booking and then showing up and they didn't have their reservation confirmed. And then you're kind of having to pay out of pocket anyways. So just make sure if you're using a portal that you double, triple check that your reservation is in fact confirmed. It's in your account. When I booked it, it showed up immediately in my national account, so I knew I didn't really have to worry or sweat about it. Other ways that you can get into Napa, you can get private transportation. This is definitely a more expensive option, but is really nice if you're kind of going a bougie route. Maybe you're with a group of girls for a bachelorette party or a birthday party. You might want to look into a private transportation company. One of the favorites that we use for work is Pure Luxury Transportation, and they service the Napa and Sonoma area, including airport transfers from all of those major airports that I just outlined. And that would be a good route to go. Yeah, if you're with a group and you're having kind of an elevated experience and you don't want to worry about driving, I would definitely recommend looking into private transportation. You could also Uber or rideshare, but it's going to add up. You're in the car for over an hour, so just be aware. I think you can use the app to look up how much it's going to cost, and just know you're going to have to get there and then use it to come back. One thing to think about too with transportation is thinking about how you're going to get around when you're in Napa. For us, we were really lucky that I have a coworker and friend who lives in Napa. So we really just needed the rental car to get to Napa. And then once we were there, my friend drove us around. But if you are renting a rental car, please do not drink and drive. If you're going wine tasting, please, please, please look into alternate transportation while you are doing your wine tasting. You can either have someone that stays a DD, designated driver, and stays sober that can drive you guys around, or Uber rideshare once you're in town. If you do the private transportation route, you can generally have transportation between the wineries as well. Now, once you're in Napa, there's a couple different places that you can stay. I have really only stayed in 2 of the hotels in Napa. I've stayed at the Westin Versa Napa, and I've also stayed at the Andaz. Both are really awesome options. They're both really close to each other. The Andaz is in downtown, which was really nice to be able to like walk around. There's a bunch of restaurants that you can walk to. There's tasting rooms, there's bars, all of that is in that downtown area. And then the Westin Versa is just down the street. It's not in the downtown area per se, it's just like right outside of it. But it's a really gorgeous hotel as well. I know that there's also been a few other hotels that we have booked for other clients and staff that have come in. The Archer is one that's also downtown. River Terrace Inn is right by the Westin. We've also had guests stay at the Embassy Suites and Hotel Yountville, which is a really, really nice hotel in Yountville proper. There's also resorts. A couple that come to mind are Carneros, Heritage, Silverado, Four Seasons. Those are all really beautiful high-end resorts in Napa. I would maybe look at those if you have a bigger budget or if you're traveling as like an anniversary. All of them have amazing restaurants and spas and things like that. A last option would be Airbnb. Lots of Airbnbs, lots of B&Bs. I haven't personally stayed at any of them, but I know that they are plenty on the Airbnb app. So those are a couple different options when you are staying in Napa of where to stay. Another thing is there's lots of different areas of Napa, lots of little towns and regions. You can look at a map to kind of see where some of these are. But a couple that come to mind, there's Calistoga, there's St. Helena, there's Yountville, there's Napa proper, there's Sonoma, there's Rutherford, there's Oakville, Carneros, Oak Knoll, all of these different areas. Before you go, I would definitely recommend that you look at the map, see where you want to stay, look at what wineries you're wanting to visit, and plan your trip around those areas. You're not gonna probably want to do a lot of hopping, but there are some wineries that are a little bit further out, so just keep that in mind on where you choose to stay. So now we're going to get into the fun part of the trip, the what do I do in Napa? And of course, first and foremost, wine tasting. If you're going to Napa and you're not tasting wine, I don't know why you're going to Napa. Napa just has so many amazing, amazing wineries, hundreds of wineries. Even if you lived in Napa, I've asked my friend Kathy when we were there, I'm like, have you been to every winery in Napa? And she said no. There's just no way. You could never do them all. I'm going to go through a couple of my top do's and don'ts for wine tasting in Napa, as well as share probably my top 5 favorite wineries and also list off a couple of others that I've either been to for work or have heard great things about. Of course, when I'm working, I'm not drinking, so I can't really speak on some of the wines at these other places, but all of these wineries make amazing wine. They're in Napa. There's no bad wine in Napa. I'm going to be real with you. There isn't. So do's and don'ts of wine tasting. Number 1, do make a reservation. You can't walk up to wineries without one. You need to book reservations for your wine tastings, and you need to book them several weeks in advance. You should not expect to be able to get all the wineries you want to go to if you do it the week of. You want to look several weeks in advance to make those, especially if there's ones that have limited capacity, smaller tasting rooms. There's a couple different factors of why you might not be able to get into a winery that you want to try. Number 2, don't try to cram in too much. You want to do probably a max of 3 reservations per day. On days when you want to do lunch somewhere, I would even lower that to 2. Depending on how many total you want to do, it's also going to depend on how many days you're there. When Adam and I went, we were there for 48 hours. So we did 3 wineries a day, 6 total. And it was a great time. Those wineries that we went to, I will share a little bit later when I rank my favorite wineries. Just know you're not going to be able to do them all. Think about how many days you're going to be there, and I would do a max of 2 to 3 reservations per day. You're going to start your first one probably at like 10:30, 11 a.m., and you'll go until the wineries close, which depending on the day of the week could be 4, could be 6. With that in mind, you have think about that. That's one winery from like 11 to 12:30, and then another winery from 1 to 3, maybe 1 to 2:30, and then your last one from 3 to 4 or until it closes. Tip number 3, do be sure to eat before going to your first tasting. Even if it's early in the morning, you should eat something. You're going to be drinking alcohol. You want to have something in your stomach. And there's a lot of delicious breakfast places, lunch places, a few of my favorites, Oakville Grocery, Model Bakery, which has the best English muffins I've ever had in my entire life. They were on Oprah's favorites list. I always go and get an English muffin when I am in Napa from Model Bakery. And they have 2 locations, one in downtown at the Oxbow Market and one in St. Helena. And then third would probably be Gott's Roadside. They have amazing, delicious burgers, definitely a great lunch spot if you are traveling and wine tasting, because they also have 2 locations, one in Oxbow and one in St. Helena. So that's tip number 3. Eat before you go to your tasting and eat during the day. Be sure you're eating along the way. Tip number 4, do research and look for wineries that specialize in varietals that you enjoy. Napa is really well known for Chardonnays and Cabernet Sauvignon. So if you like those 2, you're probably in luck because most wineries are probably going to have those varietals. Other wineries, they may specialize in sparkling like Chandon or Domaine Carneros, or they might really emphasize red blends such as Prisoner Wine Company. Maybe they do a really good Pinot Noir like Whetstone. Before you go, I would just really look into the wineries that make wines and have wines currently on their list for tastings that fit your tasting preference. You don't want to go to a winery and be drinking a bunch of Chardonnay if you don't normally like or enjoy Chardonnay. Although I always say like try it because you might be surprised. I personally am not a Chardonnay fan, and I tasted some really amazing Chardonnays while we were in Napa. So I would say that's tip 4.5 is don't limit your tasting based on what you normally drink. I would be a little bit exploratory, but you don't have to drink the whole glass either. You can definitely pour anything out. That might help too with pacing yourselves and not becoming inebriated. Just go at your own pace and enjoy the wines that you like. Be sure and tell the staff who's working your tasting what you like if you want to try something that's not on the menu. More times than not, they're more than happy to get you a glass of something that's not on your tasting menu. We actually found that at a couple of the wineries we went to is we had like our tasting menu, and then after we went through those 4 or 5, we just got to chatting and would try other varietals and other types that the winery had already open, or they would open something. So just talk to them. Most of them they love their jobs. They're such wealths of knowledge on the wines that they serve. Don't be afraid to ask for something that's not on the menu, especially if you know that they have it. Tip number 5 would be don't clean out your glass in between tastings. This might seem like a really silly tip, but I have to say it because I did that when we were in Napa and got the little like slap on the hand from the winery owner who was doing our tasting for us at AXR. So I have to share because I don't want you guys to embarrass yourselves. Generally, when you do a tasting, you'll have glasses for the wines. Sometimes the winery won't bring out a new glass for you, so you have to reuse one of your glasses. And if that's the case, don't clean out your glass with water or anything like that. Just like pour out the remnant. They'll usually have a little like bucket. You can just pour out the remnant and then they'll pour it in there. But if you pour wine into the glass, it is going to alter the taste of your next wine that's in that glass. Don't use water to clean your glass out. Just keep it in there. With that being said, do drink water. That's tip number 6. Drink water during your tastings. If they don't bring water out, which they should, ask for water so that you can stay hydrated as you are doing your tastings. Tip number 7 would be do tip your tasting staff and ambassadors, especially if you're having a great experience. They love what they do, as I said, and we just want to make sure that we thank them. Always, always tip. Don't be shy about it. My last tip would be do feel inclined to buy wine that you like. Don't feel like you have to, though. We went to 6 wineries when we were in Napa, and we bought around 7 to 8 bottles of wine total. We were driving to Southern California, and I knew we were going to be drinking some wine with friends and family in the other places we were going. I also knew I wanted to bring some wine home with me. So do feel inclined to buy wine especially if you try something and you really like it. You can also join wine clubs. I am a member of one of the wine clubs of one of the wineries we went to. Didn't feel enough of a passion to join any others, but they'll give you the information in case you want to. Also, sometimes if you do buy wine, you'll get your tasting fees waived. So just ask your tasting staff about that. One other tip is if you are planning to purchase wine, and most likely you are, I would bring padded wine sleeves with you to bring your wine back when you travel back home. These are these little like padded, they're like kind of reminds me of like bubble wrap a little bit, but you put them over the wine. They're just like a little sleeve that you stick the wine in. They're flat, so they're super easy to travel with. You can buy a 5-pack or so on Amazon, bring them with you, and then if you use them, they will protect your wine in your suitcase when you're traveling back. If you don't use them, then they're just, again, flat in your suitcase. If you don't feel comfortable traveling with wine, you can always ask wineries to ship wine to your house so that you don't have to take it back with you. And if you forget to bring a padded wine sleeve, which we did this last time, the other way that I would pack wine home, because we had to bring, I think we brought 4 or 5 bottles back, including a magnum of wine. And my tip for that would be to take your dirty clothes from your trip, if you have like a little dirty clothes bag, and use that to pad around your wine. The best part about that is if you're using dirty clothes, they're clothes that you have to wash. So if the wine bottle unfortunately breaks while you're traveling, it's going to be on clothes that you're already having to throw in the washer. And with that being said, I also always pad like my dark clothes closest to the wine bottle and then like spread out to any lighter clothes. That way, the risk of staining if the bottle breaks is very low. But I've never, knock on wood, never had a wine bottle break while I've traveled. And this time around, again, we brought 4 to 5 bottles back with us in our luggage. So those are probably my top do's and don'ts for wine tasting. Now I want to kind of go into my top wineries. There are so many wineries and they're all so good. So this was really hard for me to do like my top 5. But my top 5, if you are going, that I would say these are to not to miss, and I would add them to your itinerary. Number 1 would be Trefethen Family Wines. We are wine club members. That's the winery that I referenced we're wine club members for. We get quarterly boxes. They have amazing varietals, a really delicious Chardonnay, actually, that they're really well known for. It's award-winning. I've also had a great Sauvignon Blanc from them. They have an amazing dry Riesling, and actually, I got a Magnum this time around of the dry Riesling. I've never seen a Magnum of Riesling. Actually, I need to grab it to show you guys because it's so cool. This is, oh my gosh. This is the Magnum of Riesling. Look how beautiful she is. I'm so excited to bust this out for a dinner party. This is from 2019, and I love her. I love her so much. I love their dry Riesling. It is really tasty. I've never had a dry Riesling as good as that outside of German dry Rieslings. And this is definitely going to be a summer wine for me. I still have to figure out how to fit that Magnum in my fridge, though. I'm looking at my fridge right now, and I have no idea how I will put that in there whenever I decide to open it, because it does need to be chilled when you're serving it. But Trefethen, do not miss Trefethen. The staff there is amazing. It's family owned and operated, multi-generational. I've met one of the daughters who is just absolutely delightful, Haley, and they're just so lovely. The winery itself is beautiful too. They have when you go in this if you go in the spring, they have jasmine growing all over the property and it just smells amazing. So my number 1 top winery in Napa would be Trefethen. My second winery would be Whetstone Wine Cellars. They are also a family-owned and operated winery. They really focus on single vineyard, single varietal wines in the heart of Napa. And we got so lucky that Michelle Whetstone, who is one of the owners, her and her husband Jamie started this winery. She was at the tasting room when we did our tasting, and she really was walking us through the varietals, and it was like hanging out in a friend's living room. It was just so relaxing and a cozy environment, and it's beautiful. The property is gorgeous. They have a really delicious Syrah, really amazing Pinot Noir. So if you like either of those type of wines, definitely make sure and stop by Whetstone. We also had a really good Grenache Rosé from there as well, along with a Viognier. So, oh, and they also had the most amazing Parmesan dip, salsa de Parmigiano. They get it from a place in Napa called Bottega, but it was so good. It was like one of the best dips I've ever had. In fact, I asked them if I could buy a container from them, and they let me. And I ate it over the course of 2 days. So it was amazing. My third favorite winery would be AXR. AXR is a little bit of a newer winery to me. I had never heard of or been there before, but I definitely would not miss it on a trip back to Napa. They have really amazing wines. One of the winery owners, Mark Schratz, was able to host us and do our tasting for us. There's just something about when you have someone that works there and has been there for a while or owns the winery doing the tasting, you just get to hear about their passion and why they do what they do. And they are always so well educated and well spoken about the wines that they serve, which just really makes a difference in the tasting experience. So definitely don't miss AXR. We took home a bottle of their proprietary red blend, but also had a super delicious Sauvignon Blanc. We had a really good Grenache from there. And we also had a 100% Cabernet Sauvignon, which again is kind of what Napa is known for, but most wineries, when they serve a Cab Sauv, it's not 100% Cab Sauv. It's usually actually kind of a mix of red grapes, but it just has to have a certain percentage of Cab Sauv grapes to be considered and called a Cab Sauv. It's really rare to try wines that are 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. The fourth winery that I would recommend would be Chapelet. It's a beautiful winery. It's kind of a little bit of a ways out when you are doing wine tastings. It's not like on the main Silverado Trail or the other big, street of wineries. You have to kind of drive up this like giant, I don't know if it's a hill or a mountain, but you have to drive up a ways. It's really steep. It's a little scary, actually. We did a dinner there and I had to drive back in the evening and it was a little terrifying. But during the day, no issues during the day. So definitely, again, if you're driving around, do not drive that when you have been drinking wine. But Chapelet is wonderful. We didn't get to go this past trip, but it's in my top 5 because of just how unique it is and how gorgeous. And Blakesley Chapelet is just such a doll. Absolutely love her. If you get the chance to meet her and do a tasting, you will just know why she's in the business. She is amazing. She's a badass. And then probably my 5th favorite of the top 5 would be Cakebread. And Cakebread, it's so funny that I have Cakebread on here because I haven't actually done a tasting of the wines myself. I have drank their wines, but not at the winery. Cakebread was another venue where at work, I got to take a client group to a dinner there and set it all up. It's just got such a beautiful property and their wines are amazing, but I did not drink at this winery. I've only had their wines. I got to take a bottle home with me, but then drink it in my hotel room. But I wouldn't miss Cakebread. It's really a beautiful property and it would be in my top 5. And then some of the other honorable mentions, and again, there's so many. These are all really, really good ones, would be Nickel and Nickel. We've done 2, 3, maybe more of our events for Live in the Vineyard, and Live in the Vineyard Goes Country at Nickel and Nickel. They have horses on site. It's really idyllic and quaint, and those wines are amazing. If you like Cab Sauv, then you do not want to miss Stag's Leap Winery. It is a little bit of a nicer winery, so just be prepared with what you're wearing. You can't wear, like hats and stuff like that. You want to be a little bit more dressed up for Stag's Leap. But Stag's Leap is really what put Cab Sauv on the map for Napa. So if you like that kind of rich, bold red wine, you're going to want to go to Stag's Leap and do that tasting. A few of the others would be Peju. Again, we've done a lot of events there as well. Beautiful property, delicious culinary if you do a food and wine tasting there. Silverado Vineyards, Hess Person Estates, Round Pond, Camus, Cuvée Son. I have to just stop and do a little shout out to Cuvée Son because this property is gorgeous. It is a bit far out. It's in the Carneros area, but it's stunning. The way the winery is like it's like at the top of this big hill. You just get these beautiful panoramic views of vineyards in Napa, and it's gorgeous. And then a few of the others, Charles Krug, Robert Mondavi, Chandon. If you like your sparkling, you have to go to Chandon. Domaine Carneros is also another good one for sparkling. Prisoner Wine Company is a really good one for red blends. On this last trip to Napa, we did 6. Like I said, we did Trefethen, Whetstone, AXR, Peju, Prisoner, and Stag's Leap. Yeah, those are the 6 that we did. And it was a really good variety. Another option for wine tasting that I haven't done, but I definitely want to do it on my next trip, would be the wine train. Google the Napa Valley wine train. You'll find a lot of information, but it's an old functioning train that they've kind of like re-outfitted, and it goes to a couple different stops. I think Charles Krug is one of them. I've always seen the wine train stop there when we've done events there. It's really cool. I would check it out. It's up there for me to do on a future trip. I want to also share a couple of dinner recommendations when you're in Napa. My favorite itinerary for Napa is doing wine tastings at 3 different wineries and then ending with dinner. There's a couple different spots that I personally really enjoy. The number one that I've actually never been to, mainly because I've never been able to get a reservation, is French Laundry. That is the 3-star Michelin star restaurant that Napa has. If you are able to snag a reservation there, do it. I have just heard only amazing things about it. It's a bucket list item for me to do. But if you're unable to snag a reservation at French Laundry, a couple other options. There's La Toque, which is inside of the Westin Versa Napa Hotel. There's Scala Osteria, which is downtown. There's also Angel, which is downtown and a really delicious French restaurant. Bistro Don Giovanni is Italian, super amazing gnocchi and pasta. We also have the Charter Oak and Mustards would probably be my last two for different dining culinary experiences. A couple of those are on the Michelin recommended list, but not Michelin star. You can't go wrong with any of those dinner options. Other things to do in Napa would be, I just have to kind of call these out because of course there's more to do in Napa than just wine taste. You can do a hot air balloon ride. You can do bike tours. There's the Napa Valley Vine Trail, which I think is 12.5 miles and takes you from Yountville to Napa proper and is it's like its own little like trail for biking and hiking that you can do. There's a lot of golf courses at, Silverado or the Napa golf course if you are a big golf enthusiast. And there is, of course, live music and entertainment. We do a concert every year in every event that we do in Napa at the Uptown Theater. So check out their schedule to see if there's a show there. Or you can usually catch live music at the Blue Note or Jam Cellars. Of course, I'm listing off just the things that I'm aware of, but there are so many other things you can do in Napa, and I would highly, highly recommend going to the Visit Napa Valley website, which is their tourism visitors bureau in Napa, and just take a look. They've got a wealth of information, maps, things to do, places to stay, a list of wineries. So if you're planning a trip to Napa, these are all good tips from someone who's been, but check out Visit Napa Valley because you might find something on there that I haven't mentioned. Last two things of the episode, I want to talk about packing for Napa and budgeting for Napa. The vibe of Napa is very casual chic. You can definitely wear jeans. It's called wine country. They really kind of lean into the country vibe a little bit. It's kind of why we took our flagship event, Live in the Vineyard, and gave it a country spin with Live in the Vineyard Goes Country. I also have my little water bottle that I've been drinking out of from Live in the Vineyard Goes Country. But it is casual chic, and you can wear denim, you can wear boots. In the spring, summer, feel free to wear sundress, but always bring layers. Layers are going to be your best friend in Napa because of how the weather can fluctuate. It'll probably be a little bit cooler in the mornings and the evenings, warmer during the day. And it kind of depends on like where in Napa you go. As you're going, up further north, it's going to be cooler than it is south. So just layers. I always would bring jeans, a tank top, and then a sweater and a jacket. And you can just take things off as you get warm throughout the day or put them on as you get cold. If you're going in the fall, winter, again, bring your denim, jean jacket, leather jacket, boots, leather pants. There's just it's not any different than most cities, but you can kind of lean. It's not as high-end hoity-toity as you might think it is. So casual chic, layers, you can definitely pack in a carry-on for Napa Valley. The last part of the podcast is budgeting. So things to think about when you're planning a trip for Napa and budget categories. You're going to want to expect to pay tasting fees. And so the average cost of a basic wine tasting is around $40 in Napa. But it really can range anywhere from like $20 to $200. Just ask when you're making the reservation about what you can expect so you can budget that. Again, you should be making these reservations weeks in advance so you'll have an idea of how much you need to save Some might require a deposit on the front end, others might not. Just ask when you're making the booking. We were really lucky when we booked our reservations that they actually, since we do all this work with them and a lot of them are our wine partners, they would not let us pay to do a tasting. But you can expect, just expect to pay for it. And again, sometimes if you buy wine, they might waive the tasting fees. So just ask. It varies. Another thing you can expect, of course, is your travel, your flights, your transportation. Maybe leave a little bit of amount for Ubers if you don't have a private transportation set up for your tastings. Tipping, you want to leave some money for tips for your hotel, your transportation, your wine staff that are doing the tasting. Make sure to have some cash on hand for tipping. And then you're going to want to have some money maybe for buying wine. I like to allocate a little bit of a budget. I don't like to say, oh, I'm going to buy 6 bottles. I kind of just like to say, I'll probably spend $250, $300 on bottles of wine. That way I can kind of spread it out on what I'm enjoying tasting throughout the days. You're also going to want to budget for meals and snacks. Highly recommend bringing snacks in the car in between your tastings. If you have a tight tasting schedule, you might not have time for like a full lunch, so bring snacks. Do eat breakfast, do have dinner. We didn't cook any of the nights that we were in Napa. We went out to eat for every meal, so make sure you budget money for meals. And that is it. That is the conclusion of my Napa recommendations and favorites and tips and tricks and all of that. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you have any questions about visiting Napa or what to do in Napa, or you just want some more winery recommendations, dinner recommendations, you can always DM us on our Instagram at everydaybubblypod. But before we conclude the episode, we're going to go ahead and just share Song of the Week. I recently got into a DJ duo. I think they're a duo. It's a guy and a gal. I think they're a couple, but I don't want to speak on that in case they aren't. They are called Flavor Trip, and I found them on YouTube. And one thing you might not know about me is that when I'm working at home or just during the day and want background music, Adam and I like to put YouTube videos on, and we discovered Flavor Trip, and I just love them. They are so fun. They play really good mixes, and their whole thing is good music, good food. So while they're playing their mixes, they also have like a little setup where they're making food, and they record at these beautiful venues around the world. The one that I'm referencing my Song of the Week is from was a video. They were in this Italian villa, and they were at the poolside, and they had like a grill. They were like barbecuing. It was really cool. This song was a song that was mixed in with the mix that they were playing, and it is by an artist named Mira Lowe, and the song is called Sparks. It was just a fun tune. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'll add it to the Everyday Bubbly Bops playlist. And that is going to be the end of our episode. Thanks so much again, everyone, for listening, for sharing, subscribing. Please do so if you haven't already. Take this time, share the podcast with one person you think might enjoy it. That's really how we're going to continue to grow, is just by sharing and getting more listeners. And let us know any other topics you want to hear. Otherwise, I will see you on the next one. Cheers.